Class, welcome to week 9. Our two subjects this week will be relevance and quality score, dealing with the quality of the ads you have drawn up. And then we'll talk about Google Analytics. We'll also touch on the beginning of Project 3. So let's jump first into relevance and quality score. This score is something that Google will give you after you launch and run your ads. Google is very invested in your success because the more success you have with Google Ads, the more you want to use their product and the more marketing funds you will spend on Google. So they've implemented this relevance and quality score as a way to give you feedback on how good your ads are. So there's a lot of different factors that go into this. There's these readings in a video that will teach you about those factors and how to improve your quality score. And then in a Word document, you will answer this hypothetical. If you had a quality score of 4, what are 3 things you could do to increase that score for each of those 3 items? Explain why you believe that making those changes will increase the quality score. Please note that this is a hypothetical. You will not have a quality score on your ads yet, and should not, because you haven't launched your ad campaigns. So this is just a hypothetical, and you'll respond to this, a quality score of 4. It's also important to remember that this quality score can have an effect on how well your ads, or excuse me, how frequently your ads are displayed. When you launch your ad campaign, you will set a daily budget, and that's essentially how much you're willing to bid for ad space. And so if you have a very competitive keyword, say you're trying to advertise for a t-shirt company, which is fairly common, and so your keyword is customized t-shirt, Google will take into account not only how much you're willing to bid for that space, but what your quality score is. Google has in mind the end customer, and they don't want to put annoying or poorly written or confusing ads just because they're willing to offer the most money. And so they will take into account how much you're willing to bid, but also your quality score, the quality score of your ad. And they'll take into account both of those things when they're trying to decide whether or not your ad should be displayed. So keep that in mind as you look at your quality score. It has a large effect not only in how a predictor of how well your ad will do, but also as a mechanism to allow you to reach more people with your advertisement. So that's your relevance and quality score. You'll have a discussion board on that. And then let's jump into Project 3 briefly. This is broken into 2 parts. You will finish the second half of it next week in week 10. But the steps you should take this week is to watch this video about running your campaign, and then you'll create a campaign. You'll have 1 ad group. You'll need to write 2 ads and 10 keywords. It's important to have each of these components in your campaign. 1 ad group, write 2 different ads, and have in there at least 10 keywords. When you create this campaign, do not create a smart campaign, because it won't allow you to section off these things and add your keywords. You want to run a standard campaign. Also note this in the red. Do not run your campaign until there's further instructions in week 10. All you need to do for this is create the campaign. There will be more instructions to follow. This is in an effort to make sure your budgets are in a good place and none of you are in a position where you'll accidentally be spending a high amount of funds in Google Ads. So please don't run that campaign yet and wait for further instruction. Then the last subject this week is installing Google Analytics. This will be about the most complex we'll get as far as web development. For some of you, this is a no-brainer because that's your major or you've done it before. For those of you who have not built websites before and not done any level of coding, be patient with yourself through this. It's fairly straightforward once you get it, but it might seem intimidating at first. What you'll do is you'll follow the link. Well, excuse me. Read these and then go to the link for Google Analytics. And what Google will do is they'll generate a code for you to paste onto your website. And I'll explain in a minute what Google Analytics is and what it will do for you. But the most challenging part of this assignment is to generate this code and then paste it in the right place. I wish it was simple enough to say, take this code and paste it here in your website, but it will depend a lot on your site builder exactly where you should paste it. It's fairly straightforward when you follow the link to generate the code, but you'll need to place it at the right place on your website. You may want to reach out to your site builder or hosting company to make sure you've placed it in the right place. If you're using a very common site builder like Wix or Weebly, you could probably Google instructions on where to paste it. Site builders are trying to make this more and more intuitive and more obvious where to paste this because they realize it's in demand, but it's still difficult in some site builders. So take your time, and again, you might need to reach out to your site builder to make sure you're pasting the code in the right place. But the idea of this is that you will generate a specific code on your website that will then send data back to Google. So what is Google Analytics? It will track everything that happens on your website. How many visitors come, where they go, how they got to your website, what they do once they're on your website, and it creates invaluable data. And so if you think of like a grocery store, they will pay hundreds of thousands of dollars for these studies fairly frequently, and it will track what customers do once they get in the store, where they look, where they go, interestingly enough, grocery stores will use that to determine the cost of shelf space. And so if there's prime shelf space where people frequently go in the store, it's going to cost more money for companies to place products on the shelf there. That's a side note to just sort of explain how valuable this information is. Well, online, you don't have to pay hundreds of thousands of dollars for this. It's free through Google. And so it's an incredibly powerful analytics tool to know exactly what customers are doing on your website. And we will jump in later assignments in the course to understand and interpret that data. But that's the purpose of Google Analytics, so that you can see everything that happens on your website. And what that will do is it will drive your decisions on where to place products, on how to place products, or how to guide your reader to the experience you want them to have on your website. So there's a lot of power in Google Analytics, and we want to make sure this is a key component to your website. So again, if you're new to web development, take your time, reach out, get good information from your site builder, and then paste that code in the right place. It might take a little bit for it to register, but certainly a worthwhile assignment. So in your submission, in your Word document, you'll actually paste the code, explain where on your website you pasted it, explain briefly how you linked Google Analytics and Google Ads, because that will be another important component as you're taking your Google Ads and measuring how successful they are through Google Analytics. We'll talk more about that connection later. But that also gives you incredibly powerful insight to your marketing campaigns, and then explain why you feel Google Analytics will help if my pontification has not given you enough information on that already. As you can tell, I'm a big fan of Google Analytics, and there's just a lot that you'll glean from that, both in this week when you install it and later on when we go through the data for Google Analytics. All right, that'll be it this week, and then you'll just have your reflection. So if you're having trouble with Google Analytics or have additional questions about Project 3 or relevance and quality score, as always, please reach out. Thanks.